Love, a topic that we all have experienced at least once, but do you really understand it? Why are some relationships strong, while others are easily broken? Have you ever fallen for someone who seemed perfect, only to end up heartbroken, betrayed, and confused? Sometimes, it's not about what he says, but who he is beneath the surface. In this video, we're diving deep into 6 types of men who are most likely to cheat, not just with their actions, but with their patterns, mindsets, and emotional blind spots. If you've ever doubted your instincts or questioned your worth in love, this might be the clarity you've been looking for. Welcome to the channel, Sophia's Knowledge, and my name is Sophia. This is where you will find valuable lessons and secrets to help you build a truly lasting love. In today's video, Sophia will explore with you 6 types of men who are most likely to betray you in love. Don't miss out on advice that can change the way you perceive and live in love. You will definitely feel more comfortable when you find a quiet place and put on your headphones. Let yourself relax and be ready to receive the positive messages in today's video. Are you ready to embark on this journey with Sophia? Let's get started together. Number 1. The man who constantly seeks validation from other women. When it comes to relationships, emotional security is one of the cornerstones of true loyalty. Yet, there exists a type of man who is inherently drawn to the attention of women, not just his partner, but women in general. This is the man who constantly seeks validation from other women, and he's one of the riskiest partners when it comes to emotional and physical fidelity. At first glance, this man might appear charming, charismatic, and even affectionate. He knows how to compliment, how to carry a conversation, and how to make someone feel special. But over time, his actions reveal a pattern that can be deeply unsettling. He is never truly satisfied with the love of just one woman. Why does he seek validation? The root of this behavior often lies in insecurity. Though he may present himself as confident, even cocky, underneath that facade is someone who feels unworthy unless constantly reminded of his worth through the admiration of others. He thrives on being desired. Every compliment, flirtatious glance, or message from another woman feeds a void inside him. And the more he gets, the more he craves. It's a cycle that rarely ends unless he takes a hard look at himself and begins working on deeper self-worth. This constant need for reassurance makes him emotionally unavailable in the long run. His attention is split, his heart easily swayed, and his loyalty fragile. He isn't always unfaithful physically, but emotionally, he often checks out of the relationship without warning. Early signs you might miss. Men who constantly seek validation from other women rarely show their full colors in the beginning. In fact, they are often the most attentive and engaging partners during the early stages of a relationship. But there are subtle signs that start to emerge: excessive attention to social media. He frequently posts selfies, updates, or gym pics not just to share, but to attract responses. His self-worth is directly linked to how many women like, comment, or respond to him. Flirtatious behavior framed as harmless. He flirts with waitresses, old friends, or random women under the guise of being friendly. But it's not harmless, it's a habit that reveals where his mind truly seeks stimulation. A need to be the center of female attention in social settings. Whether you're at a party or a dinner, he effortlessly gravitates toward women and seeks their attention, even if you're right next to him. Downplaying your concerns. When confronted, he accuses you of being too sensitive or jealous. Instead of addressing the behavior, he gaslights you into thinking the problem is your insecurity, not his actions. The emotional toll on you. Loving a man like this can be emotionally exhausting. You constantly feel the need to compete with other women, even if you're in a committed relationship. You start questioning your value, wondering if you're enough, and doubting whether his love is genuine or just conditional upon your ability to boost his ego. This dynamic can lead to feelings of inadequacy, anxiety in social settings, overanalyzing his every interaction, a constant need to seek his reassurance. Emotional burnout. In the end, it's not just him who is chasing validation, you start doing the same, from him. Can he change? It's important to acknowledge that people can change, but only if they are willing to recognize and take ownership of their patterns. A man who constantly seeks validation from other women must first confront the insecurity that drives his behavior. He needs to understand that no amount of external praise will ever satisfy an internal void. That kind of healing requires therapy, deep self-reflection, and a conscious effort to build self-worth from within, not from the attention of others. But here's the hard truth: if he doesn't see his behavior as a problem, he won't change. You can't love someone into being secure. No matter how much love and loyalty you give, it will never be enough to fill a hole he refuses to acknowledge. What should you do? If you find yourself in a relationship with this type of man, the first thing to do is step back and assess how his behavior affects your emotional well-being. Ask yourself, do I feel emotionally safe in this relationship? Do I trust that I am enough for him? Am I constantly feeling the need to prove my worth? If your answers raise red flags, it's time to have an honest conversation, not just with him, but with yourself. Set boundaries. Communicate clearly about what you need in a committed relationship. If he's not willing to meet you there, you have every right to walk away. You deserve a love that's rooted in stability, not ego. You deserve someone who looks at you and feels full, not someone who always looks around for what he might be missing. The man who constantly seeks validation from other women is often battling his own insecurities, but in doing so, he creates emotional chaos in your life. His behavior may not always be labeled as cheating, but the emotional betrayal is just as damaging. Know your worth. Know the difference between a man who loves attention and a man who values loyalty. One feeds on admiration. The other grows through commitment. Choose wisely. Have you ever been in a similar situation? If so, please share your story in the comments. I look forward to hearing your interesting experiences. And if you find this content useful, please like and share to spread the message to more people. Thank you for your support. Let's continue together. Number 2. The emotionally immature man. In the early stages of love, it is easy to get swept away by charm, excitement, and chemistry. But as the relationship matures, something deeper begins to matter more than butterflies and sweet words: emotional maturity. Unfortunately, one of the most dangerous types of men to fall for is the emotionally immature man. He may appear fun, adventurous, or even romantic, but underneath the surface, he lacks the emotional tools necessary to truly love and commit. An emotionally immature man is not necessarily a bad person. In fact, he may be kind, funny, and full of good intentions. But the danger lies in his inability to handle the realities of a serious relationship. He reacts impulsively, avoids responsibility, and struggles with emotional depth. When the honeymoon phase ends, his immaturity becomes more visible, and often, more painful. What does emotional immaturity look like? Emotional immaturity is not always obvious in the beginning. It hides behind charm and spontaneity. But over time, certain patterns start to reveal themselves: avoidance of serious conversations. When things get emotionally intense or difficult, he shuts down. Instead of discussing problems, he changes the subject, cracks a joke, or disappears until the moment passes. Blaming others for everything. He rarely takes responsibility for his actions. If there is a disagreement, it's always your fault, or someone else's. He sees himself as the victim, even when he's clearly in the wrong. Inconsistent behavior. One day he's warm and affectionate, the next he's cold and distant. His emotions are unpredictable, and you often feel like you're walking on eggshells around him. Inability to apologize genuinely. He may say sorry just to end an argument, but it lacks sincerity. He doesn't reflect on how his actions hurt you or try to change his behavior moving forward. Fear of commitment. Even if he says he loves you, he avoids long-term planning or making decisions that deepen the relationship. Commitment scares him, not because of you, but because he is emotionally unprepared. Why is he more likely to betray you? Emotional immaturity makes it extremely difficult for a man to remain loyal during the tough times of a relationship. He is not equipped to face conflict, handle emotional needs, or stay grounded in moments of stress. When things get hard, he looks for escape. That escape often comes in the form of someone new, someone who doesn't challenge him, confront him, or expect emotional depth. Someone who gives him the temporary thrill of being admired without the emotional responsibility of a real relationship. In other words, emotionally immature men often cheat not because they are evil, but because they cannot handle emotional intensity. They seek comfort and validation in shallow interactions rather than doing the inner work that lasting love requires. The emotional impact on you. Being in love with an emotionally immature man is draining. You feel like you are constantly giving, constantly explaining, constantly hoping that he will change. But no matter how much love you pour into the relationship, it always feels like it is never quite enough. You may find yourself feeling lonely even when you're together. Trying to manage his moods. Suppressing your own needs to avoid conflict. Doubting your own feelings and instincts. Feeling guilty for asking for basic emotional support. Over time, your self-worth begins to erode. You start to think that maybe you're asking for too much, when in reality, you're asking for the bare minimum. Can he grow up? Yes, but only if he wants to. Emotional maturity is not something you can give to someone else. It's a journey that requires self-awareness, honesty, and a genuine desire to grow. Therapy, personal reflection, and life experience can help, but only if he is willing to take responsibility for his behavior. You cannot love someone into maturity. No matter how patient or understanding you are, you cannot carry both your emotional load and his. If he is not willing to meet you halfway, then the relationship will always feel unbalanced and emotionally unsafe. How to recognize your own limits. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is step back and ask yourself, am I in a relationship with a man, or a boy in a man's body? Because emotional maturity is not about age, it's about accountability, empathy, and the ability to love through both joy and pain. If you find yourself always being the emotional caretaker, always being the one who initiates difficult conversations or handles every conflict, it may be time to reevaluate what you truly want in a partner. Letting go of the fantasy. Many women fall into the trap of believing they can fix the emotionally immature man. That with enough love, he'll finally become the partner they deserve. But this fantasy often leads to heartbreak. It is not your job to fix a grown man. It is your job to protect your peace, honor your needs, and seek a relationship built on mutual emotional maturity. You deserve a love that shows up. A love that listens, communicates, and grows with you. A love that stays, not one that runs when things get hard. The emotionally immature man may not mean to hurt you, but he does. His inability to handle emotional responsibility makes him unreliable, unpredictable, and at times, unfaithful. He lacks the internal strength needed to weather the storms of a real relationship, and instead of growing up, he often chooses the easy way out, leaving behind broken hearts and unfinished promises. Real love requires real maturity. Do not settle for someone who still hasn't figured out how to face his own emotions. Choose a partner who is not only emotionally available, but emotionally accountable. You are not asking for too much. You are asking for what you deserve. If you are still watching the video, do not hesitate to comment continue. Leave your thoughts and questions below in the comment section. I look forward to hearing your opinions, and do not forget to like and subscribe to the channel so that Sophia has more motivation to create more good and meaningful videos. Let's continue together. Number 3. The man who is too charming, and knows it. He walks into a room, and heads turn. He flashes a smile, and suddenly, conversations pause. He speaks with confidence, moves with ease, and knows exactly how to hold your gaze just long enough to make your heart skip. This is the man who is too charming, and knows it. At first, he feels like a dream. He knows how to flirt without trying, how to make you feel seen, special, even extraordinary. He compliments effortlessly, listens just enough, and mirrors your desires like he's known you for years. His attention feels like sunlight, warm, intoxicating, and hard to step away from. But underneath the glittering surface lies a dangerous truth. Men who know how desirable they are often struggle with loyalty, not because they lack the capacity to love, but because they are addicted to the feeling of being desired. Charm is a tool, not a trait. There's a difference between someone who is naturally likable and someone who consciously uses charm as a tool. This man doesn't just have charisma, he wields it. He understands its power, and more importantly, he uses it to get what he wants. Whether it's attention, affection, admiration, or control, charm is his weapon of choice. He has likely been praised for his attractiveness or social magnetism his entire life. Compliments and flirtation are second nature to him. But over time, this constant external validation becomes a form of emotional currency. He measures his worth not by depth, but by how many people are pulled into his orbit. And when you're in a relationship with him, you quickly realize, you're not the only one caught in that orbit. Why this type is so hard to resist? Let's be honest, he's hard to resist. He knows exactly what to say to make you feel like you're the only person in the room. He listens just enough to seem interested, compliments in ways that feel genuine, and knows how to make every moment feel spontaneous and exciting. The danger lies in the illusion he creates. You may feel like you've found someone deeply connected to you, but often, what you're experiencing is a well-practiced performance. It's not necessarily fake, but it's rarely exclusive. This type of man doesn't chase one woman, he attracts many, effortlessly. And that power, when left unchecked, can become a poison to any relationship. The subtle red flags. Early on, it's easy to dismiss the warning signs because everything feels so good. But if you pay attention, the signs are there. He enjoys female attention, even when it's inappropriate. He thrives in environments where he can be admired. Flirtation, whether subtle or overt, is something he rarely shuts down. In fact, he encourages it. His friendships with women often feel too close. He may claim they're just friends, but the emotional or physical boundaries often blur. There's an ongoing undercurrent of flirtation that makes you uncomfortable, even if he insists it's harmless. He's vague about his past. Ask about previous relationships, and he'll often gloss over details or shift the focus. Patterns of short-term romances or crazy exes are common refrains. He needs to be wanted, constantly. It's not just about you wanting him. He wants others to want him too. If he's not the center of attention, he becomes restless or distant. Why he's prone to infidelity. When a man is highly attractive and knows it, he's constantly faced with temptation. But more than that, he begins to believe he deserves to indulge in it. If admiration from one woman feels good, why not collect admiration from several? This mindset, over time, creates entitlement. He may not see flirting as a betrayal, or even occasional cheating as a big deal. Because in his mind, he's simply enjoying life or not doing anything wrong unless it's serious. He often justifies his behavior by blaming others, his partner is too jealous, or doesn't trust him, without acknowledging the role he plays in creating that dynamic. Loyalty, for him, isn't about emotional commitment. It's often a game of boundaries he believes he can bend, as long as he doesn't get caught. The emotional toll on you. Being in love with a man like this is like holding on to fire. It's thrilling, passionate, even addictive, but you're constantly afraid of getting burned. His charm, once intoxicating, becomes a source of insecurity. You begin to question every interaction, overthink every text, and compare yourself to every woman who catches his eye. You may find yourself feeling constantly insecure or jealous, monitoring his social media or social interactions, competing for his attention, suppressing your own discomfort to avoid conflict, losing your sense of self-worth. Over time, the relationship becomes emotionally exhausting, and the high you once felt turns into a roller coaster of doubt and anxiety. Can he change? It's possible, but unlikely without deep self-reflection. The biggest challenge is that this man rarely sees his behavior as a problem. After all, the world has rewarded him for his charm, not punished him for it. Unless he reaches a point of emotional maturity where he values depth over attention and love over ego, he will continue to seek validation through flirtation and romantic conquests. Change requires humility, discipline, and a willingness to stop feeding the image he's created of himself. What you deserve. You deserve someone who is loyal not just in action, but in heart and intention. Someone who doesn't need the gaze of other women to feel whole. Someone whose eyes don't wander when you're not around, and who values connection over conquest. Charm may be attractive, but character is what builds trust. Don't confuse charisma with commitment. One may sweep you off your feet, but the other will walk beside you, through good and bad, with eyes only for you. Number 4. The man who lies and keeps secrets. Trust is the lifeblood of any meaningful relationship. It is the invisible thread that ties two people together, forming the foundation of emotional safety, intimacy, and love. But when you're in love with a man who lies and keeps secrets, that thread begins to fray, and eventually, it snaps. This type of man doesn't necessarily come off as a villain. In fact, he often presents himself as trustworthy, even gentle. He might speak with calm conviction, look you in the eyes, and promise he would never hurt you. But his words often mask a different reality, one that he carefully hides behind omissions, half-truths, or outright lies. He doesn't lie just to deceive, he lies because it gives him control. And control, to him, is more important than honesty. When you love a man like this, you're never entirely sure what's real, and what's just a version of the truth he wants you to believe. The different faces of dishonesty. Lying isn't always dramatic. It doesn't always involve cheating or elaborate cover-ups. Sometimes, dishonesty takes quieter forms, the text he doesn't mention, the name he leaves out, the vague explanation for why he came home late. These small lies, when piled together, become heavy burdens on your heart. There are several ways a man like this may hide the truth, lying by omission. He leaves out key details that would change how you perceive a situation. He tells you where he went, but not who he was with. Minimizing the truth. When you confront him, he downplays the situation. "It's not a big deal," or "you're overreacting," are common responses. Shifting the blame. When caught, he redirects the attention to your reaction. Instead of focusing on his dishonesty, he questions your trust or accuses you of being controlling. Creating false realities. Some lies are so deeply woven that you start to doubt your own perception. He tells the same version of events so convincingly that you wonder if maybe you really were just imagining things. Why does he lie? The reasons vary, but most boil down to fear and ego. He lies because he is afraid of the consequences that honesty might bring. He fears losing you, looking weak, or being exposed. And at the same time, he lies because he believes he can get away with it. Control is often the true motivator. When he holds information, he holds power. He can shape your emotions, influence your reactions, and protect his own image. To him, truth is not a sacred bond, it is a risk. And he avoids risks at all costs. Some men lie because they've always gotten away with it. Others because they've never learned to be emotionally accountable. Either way, their dishonesty reveals a deep flaw in their ability to form genuine, healthy connection. The emotional damage of hidden truths. Being in a relationship with a man who lies and hides things is like living in a house built on sand. You want to trust him. You want to believe his words. But something always feels slightly off. Your intuition whispers doubts, and your heart aches for clarity. This kind of relationship often leads to constant second-guessing. You question everything: where he goes, who he talks to, why he hesitates when you ask something simple. Loss of emotional safety. You never feel fully secure, because you're always wondering what he's not telling you. Erosion of self-esteem. When your concerns are constantly dismissed, you begin to doubt your instincts. You start believing that maybe you're just paranoid, even when your gut knows better. Emotional exhaustion. Trying to hold a relationship together when honesty is one-sided is exhausting. You pour energy into seeking truth, confronting lies, and trying to restore broken trust. Over time, you may not even recognize yourself anymore. You become someone who lives in survival mode, watchful, anxious, and deeply alone. Can he change? Yes, but rarely without consequences. For a man like this to change, he must first acknowledge that his dishonesty is not harmless. He must understand that every lie, even the small ones, is a wound in the relationship. Real change requires radical honesty, humility to admit fault, a commitment to transparency, the courage to face uncomfortable truths, willingness to rebuild trust brick by brick with patience. However, this kind of change is rare unless something shakes him deeply, like losing the person he thought he could keep lying to forever. What you must remember: you are not asking for too much when you ask for honesty. You are not being controlling or dramatic when you want transparency. Wanting to trust the person you love is not a weakness, it is the bare minimum for emotional intimacy. If you find yourself constantly uncovering lies, questioning his words, or living in a cycle of confrontation and confusion, it may be time to ask, is this love or manipulation? Because love doesn't thrive in secrecy. It grows in truth. The man who lies and hides things is not just protecting himself, he is robbing you of peace, clarity, and emotional stability. His actions may not always seem cruel, but the consequences are deeply wounding. Every lie chips away at the foundation of your trust until there's nothing solid left to stand on. You deserve a relationship where you don't have to wonder. Where truth is not something you have to dig for, but something freely given. You deserve honesty that feels safe, and love that doesn't require you to question what's real. Let him keep his secrets far away from your heart. Because your heart was made for truth. Number 5. The man who lacks direction in love. He's kind. He makes you laugh. The chemistry is undeniable. Conversations flow, dates are fun, and time with him feels effortless. But when it comes to the future, when you bring up commitment, long-term plans, or simply ask, where is this going? He freezes. Suddenly, the man who seemed so present begins to feel distant. This is the man who lacks direction in love. He's not cruel. He's not manipulative. In fact, he might care for you deeply. But emotional connection without clarity is a trap, and this kind of man is often caught between the comfort of a relationship and the fear of defining it. He floats in a space of maybe, while you're stuck waiting for a yes or no, and the longer you stay, the more you realize, love without direction often leads straight into heartbreak. What does lack of direction look like? At first, it's subtle. He says all the right things, but avoids deep conversations about the future. He uses vague language like, let's see where this goes, or I'm just going with the flow right now. These phrases sound harmless, even romantic, but over time, they reveal a painful truth: he's not building anything with you. Some of the signs include, he doesn't talk about the future. When you bring up next year, he talks about next weekend. He avoids conversations that involve shared goals, milestones, or any form of long-term planning. He avoids labels. Even after months of dating, he's uncomfortable calling you his girlfriend or partner. He prefers to keep it casual, even if you've already emotionally invested yourself in the relationship. He's emotionally present, but only in the moment. He can be incredibly attentive and affectionate, but his love is limited to the now. He rarely discusses what commitment, partnership, or building a life together actually means to him. He says he's not ready, but doesn't grow. It's okay for someone not to be ready for a serious relationship, but what matters is whether they are moving toward it. This man isn't growing into readiness. He's simply staying still. Why he's a risk for betrayal. When a man doesn't know what he wants, he becomes a passenger in his own relationship. And a man without direction is easily swayed by attention, desire, or the illusion of something better. He may not intend to hurt you, but when another woman enters his life offering excitement or admiration, he might drift away without a second thought. His betrayal often doesn't feel explosive, it feels quiet. One day, he just stops showing up emotionally. Or he disappears altogether. He doesn't fight for you because he never planned a future with you to begin with. Lacking direction doesn't make him heartless, but it does make him unreliable. And in matters of love, reliability is everything. The emotional impact on you. Being in love with someone who has no clear direction is like being on a road trip with no map, no destination, and a driver who keeps saying, "Let's just keep driving." At first, it feels adventurous. But eventually, you get tired. You need to know where you're headed. You need to feel like your time, love, and energy are building towards something real. This type of relationship can leave you feeling emotionally unanchored, constantly questioning your worth, silencing your own needs to avoid pressure, hoping he'll figure it out, investing in someone who isn't investing in you. You may find yourself lowering your standards just to keep him. You tell yourself he's not a bad guy, and he isn't. But good intentions mean very little when there's no direction behind them. Why you can't be his compass. One of the most painful truths is this: no matter how patient, loving, or supportive you are, you cannot force someone to find direction. That is his journey. And if he's not actively on it, you'll spend years waiting for a future that never arrives. You may try to guide him, to help him see what's possible, to be so perfect that he suddenly realizes you're the one. But love doesn't work that way. Real direction in love doesn't come from pressure, it comes from clarity and commitment. If he doesn't have that within himself, he'll keep drifting, and take you with him. Can he change? Yes, but not because you want him to. A man without direction has to reach a point where he no longer wants to float. He has to want something deeper than temporary comfort. That kind of change only happens when he does the inner work to discover what love and commitment truly mean to him. Until then, he's not building anything, he's passing time. And you deserve more than being someone's temporary comfort zone. What you deserve. You deserve love that is intentional. A relationship that is not only filled with affection, but anchored by purpose. Someone who chooses you, openly, clearly, and without hesitation. Someone who knows where he's going and wants you by his side on the journey. Do not settle for a man who confuses chemistry with commitment. Do not wait for someone who doesn't know if he wants to stay. Because the longer you wait for direction, the more lost you'll become in the relationship. The man who lacks direction in love may not hurt you intentionally, but he will still leave you emotionally adrift. His indecision becomes your anxiety. His silence becomes your self-doubt. And while you're planning a life together, he's still wondering what he wants for dinner tomorrow. Let him figure himself out, alone. You don't have to pause your life while he finds a compass. There are men out there who don't just love with passion, but with purpose. And that's the kind of love you truly deserve. Number 6. The man who has cheated before. They say once a cheater, always a cheater. While that may not be universally true, it carries a heavy weight of reality, especially if the person in question has never taken full responsibility for what they did. A man who has cheated before is someone you should approach with caution, not because people are incapable of change, but because the patterns of the past often echo into the future. When you're falling in love, it's easy to believe that your relationship is different. That he's different now. That whatever happened in his past was just a mistake or a moment of weakness. And maybe it was. But here's the hard truth: if he hasn't healed, learned, and grown since that betrayal, he is likely to repeat the same behavior, no matter how much he says he loves you. Why did he cheat before? And has he faced it? Understanding why he cheated in the past is crucial. Not every infidelity stems from the same root. Some cheat because they are emotionally immature. Others cheat because they lack self-control, crave constant attention, or fear vulnerability and commitment. The real question is, has he confronted the real reason behind his behavior? Or has he simply buried it, moved on, and convinced himself it won't happen again? Men who cheat and never reflect often carry the same emotional blind spots into their next relationship. They excuse their past, blame their ex, or say things like that relationship was already over anyway. These are red flags, not just of their past, but of their inability to take ownership. On the other hand, if a man openly acknowledges his betrayal, has done the emotional work, and can talk about it with honesty and remorse, not shame or defensiveness, that's a different story. But that level of self-awareness is rare, and you should never assume it exists without evidence. The patterns of repeat behavior. When someone cheats and gets away with it, or doesn't feel the full impact of what they've done, they're more likely to do it again. Why? Because it becomes familiar. Because they've already crossed the line once, and crossing it again doesn't feel as monumental. Infidelity is not always a sudden event. It often begins with small decisions, hiding messages, entertaining flirtation, testing boundaries. For someone who has cheated before, these decisions come more easily, especially if they've never faced true consequences or emotional growth. Pay close attention to how he talks about his past. Is he dismissive? Vague? Does he blame everyone else except himself? Or does he express insight into what he did and why it hurt someone else? His attitude about his past is often a reflection of how he might act in the future. The risk of projection and emotional insecurity. When you're dating someone who has cheated before, you might start to second-guess everything: his phone, his tone, his behavior, his timing. Even if he hasn't done anything wrong in your relationship, the shadow of his past can linger. That shadow is not your fault. It's the result of broken trust somewhere in his history, and your instincts are trying to protect you. You may find yourself checking for signs of dishonesty, feeling anxious when he's not communicating, doubting your own worth, wondering if you'll be enough to keep him faithful, walking on emotional eggshells to avoid conflict, needing constant reassurance. This kind of emotional environment can slowly eat away at your peace, especially if your concerns are brushed aside or labeled as paranoia. Can people truly change? Yes. But change is a process, not a promise. Anyone can say, "I'm not that person anymore." What matters is what he has done to make that true. Change looks like going to therapy, reflecting deeply and honestly about his choices, acknowledging the pain he caused, being open and transparent in his new relationship, understanding what triggers his patterns and actively avoiding them. Change is not proven through charm, apologies, or romantic gestures. It's proven over time, through actions, consistency, and emotional accountability. If he becomes defensive when asked about his past, that's not growth. If he tells you, "I would never do that to you," but refuses to discuss what led to his past infidelity, that's not healing. Real transformation is rooted in truth. What you need to protect your heart. You do not need to punish someone for their past, but you absolutely have the right to question it, to understand it, to ask for honesty, to expect transparency, and to walk away if you don't feel emotionally safe. Here's what you deserve: a partner who values loyalty as a core principle, not a circumstantial promise, someone who takes responsibility for their past instead of running from it, emotional safety, where your concerns are met with care. Not anger or guilt trips, a relationship that is built on truth, not selective storytelling. A man who has cheated before is not automatically unworthy of love, but he is someone you must approach with discernment. Because betrayal, when left unexamined, doesn't just hurt one relationship. It becomes a habit, a default escape when things get hard, a way of coping with discomfort rather than growing through it. Do not fall in love with his words. Fall in love with his actions. Pay attention not just to what he says, but to how he lives. Does he honor your trust? Does he protect your heart even when no one is watching? Does he own his past without hiding it? You deserve a love that doesn't make you fear your partner's history. A love that feels safe, clear, and whole. And if he is truly changed, he will not only tell you, he will show you, every day, without needing to be asked. Conclusion. Falling in love is a beautiful experience, but loving the wrong man can slowly shatter your peace, confidence, and emotional well-being. Throughout this journey, we've uncovered 6 types of men who are most likely to betray your trust, not always with malice, but with a lack of emotional maturity, integrity, or self-awareness. From the man who constantly needs validation from other women, to the one who hides behind charm or excuses his past betrayals, the warning signs are often there. But in the haze of love, we sometimes silence our intuition. We believe we can love them into loyalty, into clarity, into change. Yet, real commitment cannot be forced. It must be freely chosen, deeply rooted, and consistently lived. You deserve more than a relationship that makes you anxious, unsure, or constantly on edge. You deserve love that is safe, transparent, and anchored in trust. Recognizing these patterns is not about judging others. It's about protecting your heart and honoring your worth. So, if you see yourself in any of these stories, pause. Reflect. Ask yourself the hardest question of all: am I building love with someone who is ready to build it with me? Because the truth is simple, the right man won't make you doubt. He will make you feel seen, secure, and safe. Every single day. Thank you for taking the time to watch today's video. I hope you found some useful lessons about love and relationships. If you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. I appreciate your support and will continue to bring valuable content in future videos. Please continue to join me on my journey to learn about love and relationships. See you soon, and I wish you happiness.